voice of the fan. Drop a bounce pass, throw down the rim rocker. Lay up off the
We
glass,
are the
pass,
Peach
shot
Basket.
blocker.
We're back. We are
Voice
Voice of the Fan, home of fan experts. We exist to amplify the voice of passionate basketball fans worldwide. Tonight, we continue our NBA 2021-22 season team previews with the Orlando Magic. I'm joined once again by Isaac Edelman from FLTeams.com, a partner site of ours. We were always excited to talk to Isaac, and definitely excited to partner with the FL Teams team. Definitely your one-stop shop for all things Florida sports, not just basketball. They cover the Heat, they cover the Magic, they cover everything else. So tonight we're going to be talking the rebuilding Orlando Magic, which, I talked a little bit about this to you, Isaac, before we got started. I respect a team that knows when it's time to do that. There are some teams that don't. The Orlando Magic decided to rebuild, and there's you got to give a lot of credit, I think, to do that, because GMs, owners, they don't like to go through this process. I don't think fans do, to be blatantly honest. Certainly in some cities, they don't like to go through rebuilding. The Lakers don't like to rebuild. Celtics don't like to rebuild. But the Magic decided it's time, and that's great. So let me start first by saying, and apologies, how are you? Good to see you again. You ready to talk Magic basketball?
Absolutely.
Outstanding. We're going to do it the same way we've done from the start. It seems to work out really well. I will preface this by saying, and you've heard me say this before if you watched our other preview shows, I'm a West Coast guy. I like to think I certainly love the game, and I know the players. I am hard-pressed to identify many of these Magic players. Now, when I looked at the roster, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, he's on the Magic. I know him. But, I think outside of Orlando, a lot of even hardcore basketball fans just don't know this team. So, personally, I'm excited to get to know them, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on them. So, let's start with who's new. Who's new on the Magic this season?
Look, the Magic are a young basketball team, and many people, really, and this is what you just said, do not know who's on this team. So they do have some new players, but their new players are from the NBA draft. And I've watched every show that Jose has done with the other writers on the Peach Basket. And, they had a show with the Bulls, the Celtics, the Heat, and other teams. And the NBA draft wasn't talked about, and it didn't need to be talked about. But for the Magic, it does. They have two new players, courtesy of the NBA draft, and they are both top 10 picks. The first one is Jalen Suggs. He is fantastic. He is definitely a candidate for Rookie of the Year. Jalen Suggs will be Orlando's star player this year. Take that how you want it. I don't know how good he will, but I do think he will be their best player this upcoming season. The Magic also got in the first round another top 10 pick, Franz Wagner. People don't really know a lot about him. He went to Michigan, and his brother is on the Magic, Mo Wagner, otherwise known as Moritz Wagner. And, let's move away from the NBA draft. The Magic got a veteran, Robin Lopez, and I'm sure you guys know who he is. Robin Lopez will be the center for the Magic, and guess what? He won't even be their starting center. Which, again, Robin Lopez is towards the end of his career. He's just, coming on board to teach the young pieces on Orlando, and the Magic have a lot of those young pieces. Yeah. And I think most importantly, the newest piece on the Magic is their head coach, Jamal Mosley. The Magic fired Steve Clifford, who's been their head coach for the past few years. He hasn't done that bad. He hasn't done that good. I mean, the Magic have made the playoffs in a few of the past few seasons, but obviously they made the playoffs as the 7th and 8th seed, and that's why it's time to rebuild. And I loved how you started off this show, Jose, by saying some teams just don't know when to rebuild. The Magic knew that it was time to rebuild. Even though they've made the playoffs, they knew they were first-round exits. Making, the 8th seed every year is not that important. You want to make it far in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think it's true for teams. It's true for players, right? Some players don't know when it's time to hang them up, and that's always hard as a fan to watch a player kind of stick around maybe longer than he needs to. And it's hard for fans watch a team consistently just not be good enough. I've said before, it's great to be great, and it's actually okay to be bad because there's nowhere to go but up. But when you're right in the middle, right, when you're just good enough to maybe hit that 8th spot or fight for the 9th spot or something, and that's who you are consistently, that's tough. That's tough for fans. It's tough for players. I think that's just an overall tough place to be. And so, yeah, honestly, I give a lot of respect to the management of the Magic to realize, listen, man, it's time to blow this up and start over. And they've got some good pieces. You mentioned them. So let's talk about that. And I think you already hinted at the answer, but every team needs, a superstar to build around. Do you think they got their superstar this draft, or TBD on that?
I definitely say it's TBD. Jalen Suggs, without a doubt, is a good basketball player, but as of now, I honestly have no idea about his future. If you ask me, do you think Jalen Suggs will have at least one All-Star appearance in his career? I really don't know. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say yes. Truthfully, I need to see more from him. He played well in the summer league. He played well in the preseason, but again, we haven't seen one NBA game from him. And that's why, in terms of the Magic totally, I said that I think Jalen Suggs will be their best player. But again, that is just a prediction. And, who says that I am so smart to know who's the best player on the Magic? But, honestly, whoever the best player on the Magic is going to be, it's not going to be an all-star. I hate to say it. The Magic are just at that point where they're building young players to become all-stars, and that's where Cole Anthony comes into place. Last year, he was a rookie. He played well, and hopefully he will take that next step this year.
And I'm glad you mentioned Cole Anthony because I don't know how fair this is, but my first thought when I thought about the Magic, every team has kind of the face of the franchise, right? When you play the Lakers, you're going to see a picture of LeBron, right?
Yes, exactly.
You play the Celtics, you're going to see Jason Tatum. And I looked at this team and I think, well, who's the face of the Magic, right? Because the NBA and the franchise wants to promote somebody that people know. If you put, and no disrespect, but you put Wagner, as the face of this franchise, a lot of people can be scratching their heads because they don't, he just doesn't, we don't know who he is yet. Same with Jalen Suggs, really, outside of college basketball fans, they may not know who he is, what he looks like. So I think that they're likely to maybe promote a guy like Michael Carter-Williams or Mo Bamba, who I love the name. I love his game. I like Mo Bamba, or someone like Cole Anthony. So again, terribly unfair question. Who knows how it's all going to play out? But when teams play the Magic, who's the face of this team? Or the Magic going to likely, just kind of, roundtable that, a different player every time around? Who knows? What do you think?
I do think it's going to be a different player every time. I think we will see some Robin Lopez pictures just because NBA fans know him.
They know him, sure.
I think he's the most known player on the Magic. But I do think we'll see a lot of Jalen Suggs. I don't know if you watch college basketball, Jose, but he made the biggest shot in the NCAA last year. Yeah. It was to beat UCLA again. He was on Gonzaga. Gonzaga beat UCLA on that buzzer beater to advance to the national championship game. He hit that buzzer beater. Do you remember that play?
Not only do I remember it, I literally heard the groans from down the road in Westwood, right? I'm an LA guy. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Isaac. Appreciate that very much.
That's why I do. That's why I do think he, people know him because most basketball players, fans, at least watch college basketball and especially March Madness. And I think they, for example, you might have forgotten that was Jalen Suggs who made that shot. Once people see his face, I think they'll know who he is.
Right on. Yeah, and making that jump from, making that big shot in college making that big shot in the pros. Is, some players do it, some players don't. So it'd be very interesting to see, how that plays out for him. Talk to me about, one of the players that, when I was looking at the roster, I can't say I was surprised to see, but I admit to having forgotten about this guy, Markelle Fultz. He came out with a lot of fanfare. He was supposed to be phenomenal. There were early predictions. He was the new James Harden. And then he just forgot how to shoot, and we've seen that with Ben Simmons. We've seen that with other players. But then he had a little bit of a resurgence. And again, he plays in the East. I admit to not being up to date on my Markelle Fultz news, but tell me about him and his place in the Magic this season.
So he's obviously injured, and he suffered a devastating injury last season. He was actually, and I think he would have won the Most Improved Player award. But his injury really ruined the Magic season. Look, I don't think him staying healthy would have, stopped them from rebuilding. I still think they would have traded Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and Evan Fournier. But it was just devastating in terms of he was having his best season as an NBA player. And again, he's a former first-round pick and a high pick, right? So that's where, that injury comes in as devastating. So this season, he'll come in, just before the All-Star break. He's still injured. And so his role's still big. But again, the Magic are likely not going to make the playoffs. So I think they're going to, let him heal and make sure he's 102% healthy. And that's where I think Terence Ross will come in. Terence Ross last year was actually the Magic's sixth man. And at one point, I thought he could have won the best sixth man of the year. But this year, he's going to be in their starting lineup. I don't know how things will pan out. Obviously, when Markelle Fultz comes back, you may see Terence Ross come off the bench. But bottom line, Markelle Fultz is coming off his best season. But again, he's coming off the worst injury that he suffered in his NBA career. So I honestly do not know what's going to happen. But look, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe the Magic won that trade. They traded away Ben Simmons. Who knows?
Well, I'm excited to talk about that when it happens. I'm glad you brought up Terence Ross. That's a player I really like. Also a veteran. A solid player. I mean, this is a guy who averaged 15, almost 16 points a game last season. And like you mentioned, most of that was off the bench. He only started 2 games last season. So, giving this guy an opportunity to start, who knows? That might be the face of this franchise. But I guess that's kind of the moral of the story with the Magic. We just don't know. Just don't know. We got to see how it plays out. So you talked about who's new, a couple of rookies. Any prominent players that are no longer with the Magic this season?
Well, obviously, when you ask that question, and I think if you ask that question to anyone, even if they're not Magic fans, Nikola Vucevic comes to mind. Sure. Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier, they were traded at the trade deadline last season. And that's why, that comes to mind. But the Magic didn't really have a busy offseason. They didn't really sign anyone besides Robin Lopez, and they didn't really get rid of anyone except their head coach, Steve Clifford. But off the top of my head, the Magic didn't really lose. I think they lost a few G Leaguers, and I think they're 11th and 12th people off the bench. But they did not lose any people that were going to have minutes on the team this year and that had minutes last season.
Got it. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the biggest losses for the Magic came during the season last season when they decided to flip the switch and rebuild. All right, outstanding. We ask everybody who's doing these with us the same question, and I hesitate to ask it, but because again, this is such a big unknown, but the Orlando Magic ceiling, right? This team, if everything gels for them and everything goes right, what do you envision for them this season? What's the top tier ceiling for the Magic?
It's a tough question because again, and you said the moral of this show is, and of the Magic, we don't know. Yeah. But I'd say the 8th seed is their ceiling because again, we're having a play-in tournament this year, and who knows if teams just suck and the Magic maybe still suck, but they're just better than a few teams. They have a possibility of making the 8th seed via the play-in tournament.
I think what would be exciting for this team if they were to do that is, they're so young, right? And I think if they were to do that, it's because some of these players that we've mentioned really started to blossom. And when you make the 8th seed with a new team, with new players, with new potential stars, that's exciting. When you make the 8th seed right over and over and over again with the same players, that's troublesome. So yeah, the 8th seed might not seem like much, and fans of other teams might scoff at that, but that would be great progress for this team, undoubtedly. So yeah, outstanding. I think that'd be great for them. What's the biggest concern? New coach, not a whole lot of new players. But well, that's not true. I mean, when you look at who they started last season compared to who they start this season,
Yeah.
it's a totally different team. So yeah, new player, new coach. What's the big concern here this season?
I don't think a concern at all is that they got a new coach. I think it was time to move on from Steve Clifford, and I think they picked a pretty good choice for a coach. He obviously has a lot of coaching experience, mainly as an assistant. So it's not Jamal Mosley, their new head coach. But I think the Magic's biggest concern is just, staying healthy.
Sure.
Mo Bamba doesn't stay healthy. Markelle Fultz doesn't stay healthy. Markelle Fultz, again, I keep on saying this, but was coming off his best season last year, and he didn't even play in that many games. If he stayed healthy, the Magic might have traded him. Which imagine trading him in addition to the 3 they already traded. But Mo Bamba, the Magic have been trying to trade him for years, ever since he's entered this league. But I just he's not getting a lot of playing opportunities, and I do have to admit that was mainly due to Steve Clifford. He didn't give Mo Bamba much of a shot. But again,
Okay.
Bamba's been injured a lot, and Terence Ross is an injury-prone player, and Jalen Suggs got injured in the summer league, so he may be an injury-prone player. So we'll just have to see how this season goes. But I think the Magic's biggest concern is their, injuries. Every team has injury concerns, but I
Sure.
think there's not a lot at stake for the Magic, and that's why I think that's their biggest concern.
Yeah, and I kind of look at that as a two-headed, I don't want to say monster. In other words, there's a blessing and a curse here, right? Because concern and a lack of concern, the Magic, when you know the expectations are low, and the expectations are low for the Magic team, anything you accomplish is icing on the cake, right? So if they have an injury-prone season, I'm not wishing this on them, of course. People will say, well, that was expected. We knew they weren't going to be good. But if they have a healthy season and turn some heads, then all of a sudden people are saying, well, these are the Phoenix Suns of a couple seasons ago. These are the Atlanta Hawks of last season. This is a team that could surprise. So you're in a really good spot when you are where the Magic are, where you're starting over. Nobody expects anything from you. Anything you do is looked at with some positivity. So, again, nobody wants to be here, but it's not the worst place to be. All right, let's end it with this. Again, question we ask everybody, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts. What is your bold prediction for the rebuilding Orlando Magic?
Look, there's not really many bold predictions you can make, and that's why I think this will be a similar one to many people's answers if you ask them that question. Jalen Suggs will win Rookie of the Year.
Nice.
Nothing as of now is telling me that Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, who were drafted prior to Suggs, are better than him. Matter of fact, Jalen Suggs was the best college player last year. Obviously, many players in college, their success doesn't translate to the NBA.
Right.
And again, a few top picks were from the G League, right? So not all players are from college, but Jalen Suggs was the best college player last year. He made the biggest shot in college basketball last year. I think he will win Rookie of the Year. And I am not just saying this because I need to choose a bolder prediction, and I don't have any other predictions to predict. I'm actually saying this from my heart. Jalen Suggs, I think, is better than Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green. And also, since he's on a team like the Magic and he doesn't have a lot of competition, he will blossom.
Right. Yeah, that's always fun. I think when a college player, a lot of college players come into a team, they're given, even Kobe Bryant, right, who wasn't a college player, he came out of high school, but he didn't get a lot of minutes with the Lakers originally, and of course he was very young. But you don't get the ball as a college player coming into the first year in the league and get 30 minutes a game, like you're used to, getting the majority of the time like you do in college. But he may very well get his 30 minutes with an NBA team, if he shows that he deserves them. I have never, in the whole time we've been doing this, for a couple weeks, made my own bold prediction. I'm going to make one, and it concerns the Orlando Magic. And I'm going to qualify this by saying I know absolutely nothing about the I know what I just learned today from Isaac. That is the extent of my Orlando Magic experience. So take this with a grain of salt. But I like this guy. I like his name. My bold prediction, Mo Bamba, is going to Mo Bamba is going to average a double-double. And he is going to play. He's going to start every game. He's going to be injury-free, and he's going to average 28 minutes per game. And his double-double is going to be substantial. It's not going to be like 10 and 10. It's going to be like 13 and 15. I mean, he's going to be good. Double-double for Mo Bamba. Bank on it. Bold prediction.
Well, if that happens, Jose, I'm going to give credit to Robin Lopez.
Why not me?
And you.
Okay, I'll take it. No, that's a good point, right? If that happens, it's 50% Robin and 50% me. All right, outstanding. Well, I always love talking basketball, and and Isaac and I were talking about this before. I love learning about teams I really don't know a lot about. I did not know a lot about the Magic. I'm excited to follow them this season. Hopefully, if you're watching this and you didn't know a lot, you learned a little bit. Which is why we're here. We're the Peach Basket. We are voice of the fan, home of fan experts like Isaac. We exist to amplify the voice of passionate basketball fans worldwide. Our preview will continue with the Hornets. Date TBD. Hopefully sometime over the weekend, but the Hornets are up next. Isaac, as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk again next time.
Lay up off the glass right past the shot blocker. I follow through like Kobe's is money. You can cash it. For news on LA hoops, come over to Peach Basket. Up-to-date sports, post-game reports, debates and play-by-play coming straight off the court. The voice of the fan making noise, causing havoc. Zone a man up, you can ask Peach Basket. The Peach Basket, come and tune on there. The Peach Basket, where the news begins. We're dropping news like we're in the stands. Creative views from the average fan.